Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course, you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C Tropic, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful November 15th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's another day of confusion. I don't know if this is the beginning, the end, or the middle of the sports week, on a daily basis.
Yep.
I mean, because every time I look up, there's a football game on television.
Yep.
But on a more serious point, Charlton, I want to send out our thoughts and prayers to Detective Ron Hewlett's family out there in Southern California, the officer who lost his life last week in that deadly nightclub shooting out there in Southern California, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was laid to rest today. He was the 47th officer that has lost his life in America this year in the line of duty in such a careless act by an American terrorist who decided he wanted to go in and shoot up a nightclub. I know the gentleman that went in and killed everybody, Charlton, will never be labeled as a terrorist because he was a disgruntled white male.
Yeah.
But this officer went in to save lives, Charlton, to do what he was called upon to do, after 29 years of service, Charlton, just a year away from retirement, lost his life in a senseless act of American terrorism. But I wanted to say our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, his wife, and his son, Charlton, in their tragic loss in this horrific event.
Well, I echo those same sentiments, Big C. Our thoughts and prayers with his family, and we know there's a lot of things going on, all over the state of California. Just a lot of times you need a way to relax. I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Sometimes you think about all the things that people do in order to relax and in order to feel better. And I know there's a lot of happening in Southern California and Northern California. If you're ever able to just get away from it and get your mind right, I just want to compliment one of the best spas in Northern California. It's Stay Fit Spa. It's located at the Hyatt Regency, downtown Sacramento. You can get away and go relax and kind of get yourself together again. I know people are going through it, Big C, and there's a lot of people who need to just get their mind right, and there's nothing like a great spa that would do it for you. Stay Fit Spa at the Hyatt Regency, downtown Sacramento. Just want to say thank you for all the people in Northern California, and even in Southern California. I heard something, Big C, that's very near and dear to my heart. We've Big C Sports for 3 years now. We've been talking about sports and politics because it's real talk. So whatever's real, we bring it to mind. I heard many stations in Northern California, many of these same stations that said, we don't want to talk about politics. If anything happens, I don't want to hear it, just the sports. If you want to talk politics, change the channel. Well, we talked about a lot of Black Lives Matter. We talked about the black vote that's being obstructed in Georgia. And people said, well, that's not my concern. I want to talk about the game. Well, I gotta look at it because it's true. Northern California, a lot of people lost a lot of things. And many of those people, they're not people of color. A lot of those towns are not very integrated. And my heart and thoughts and prayers are with everybody. But would you believe some of the mainstream stations in Northern California took almost the whole day to ask people to reach out and help somebody, and they've always refused to do that, especially when it fed a certain stereotype. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when it affects, and I'm not being flippant here or insensitive, when it affects people that look like them, then they want to say that we have compassion.
Yep.
That's the sad part, but that shows the divide in our country, is that we don't have compassion for everybody. Charlton, we direct our interest to everybody, regardless of race, creed, color, nationality, or religion.
Yep.
Everybody is covered in Charlton and Big C Sports. And so when these stations feel that it's politically correct for them to indulge in an empathetic flight, then they make it an issue. But, it's only a one-day issue, Charlton. It's not an everyday issue. that they want to deal with. You know, they want to come up and say, okay, our thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a statement that's used, and sometimes it's used too much, and sometimes it's not used at the right time, Charles.
Yeah.
When people say our thoughts and prayers, but they're not putting into action.
Yeah.
They might bring somebody in to speak in their behalf, but it doesn't come from the emotions or the personalities at the stations, Charles.
I agree.
They don't know how to feel. It's almost like our White House. It doesn't know how to feel for the layman citizen.
Yep.
It doesn't understand what the layman person goes through because they've never dealt in that level of life, you know, with lack of finances,
Yep.
or devastation. And even the people that are in the broadcast scenario, something, yes, they're in very fortunate situations now because they have decent incomes.
Yeah.
They live in decent neighborhoods, Charlton. They get to deal with people who are in the same profession that they are. They don't have to go to the inner city neighborhoods, Charlton. They don't have to drive through them. They don't have to worry about not having a meal, Charlton, because they're fed at their workplace.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, Charlton, not having the heat on in their house, Charlton. And when the people are sitting here and we're looking at the devastation that's going on in California, just like we witnessed the hurricanes in Florida and in Texas, Charlton, the devastation that those families went through, you know, it's almost like unhuman because we have gotten to a comfort level in this country and even around the world that we don't expect devastation to occur. It's almost like a war-torn area. And to understand and have empathy for what people go through, it's nice to have the story come on today, this week, Charlton. But we're talking about the fires that were in California right now.
Yeah.
They had these fires a year ago in California, Charlton.
They sure did.
And these people still haven't recovered from a year ago.
Yeah.
And not only after the fires, what season are we coming into? We're coming into the winter, Charlton.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get rain eventually in California. And the devastation from the rain and the mudslides will exceed what they went through with the fire, Charlton, because there's no vegetation to hold back the water flow now. Not only that, the fire hardens the ground, Charlton, so it's unable to absorb water. So the thoughts and prayers that are going out to the people now, Charlton, that devastation in 2 months will be even greater than what it is now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we hope that people can stick together and just help and check on your neighbor. Oftentimes that people don't know what's going on in their own household, let alone your neighbor's household. So everybody just reach out to your neighbors if you can. I did hear some heartwarming stories. Just, you know, if, you know, something you always talk about doing, Big C. I've noticed I've been taking any extra food I have, looking in the pantry. There's a lot of things I haven't eaten in a couple of months. They're canned foods. I know the Red Cross is also saying, please, you know, reach out, make donations, especially here in Northern California. There are towns, they showed on the news last night, the city of Paradise, and up by Chico and some of the areas, there's a Chico State University up there. I think even Aaron Rodgers are from that neck of the woods. They were saying that if the land mass that burned were the city of Sacramento, ever covered Sacramento 2 times, and that's a metropolitan area of over 2 million people. So I think it would be like the city of New York and 5 boroughs. That's how much the land mass is burned. So I hope that, again, if you have some non-perishable foods, see if you can get those out to the Salvation Army, Red Cross. Anything helps. A lot of times we just don't realize how blessed we are, and I just want to make sure our thoughts and prayers and our actions are with people going through that. Big C, I want to touch on a few things in the world of the NBA. You know, we talked about it just yesterday, and I know as an African-American man, you rarely hear us on the air that are the vanguards, or the number 1 and number 2 guys. Usually they're sitting in an ancillary spot, so you really don't know what they think. But we said just yesterday, this thing about Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, it was nothing. People talk all the time. If you ever play pickup basketball, you get called the blippity blip and the blankety blank, and then you shake hands and maybe even have a soft drink together. Today they're walking into a game together, and people are saying, "Oh, they made up." No, they didn't make up. They never were apart. It's just men being men. If that makes any sense, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, everybody wants to create a story, and you know, you look around the league, Charlton. How many teams are losing? How many teams have losing records?
A lot of them.
How many teams have not won the NBA title, Charlton, in the last 4 years? That's what you have to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, or 2 years ago. There was all type of strife after Kyrie Irving didn't want to be around LeBron James anymore.
That's right.
Why? Because they were a winning team.
Yep.
So that was an easy team to create controversy about because they won, so Kyrie wanted to have his own team. Well, when you look at this scenario that occurred in Golden State, Charlton, with Green and Durant, there's, you got 15 different personalities in that organization.
Yeah.
Charlton, there have been times that players have been released because of differences, but normally that player doesn't play a major role in that team.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that there's been a fight in a professional organization. And I know you're young and a lot of listeners are young, but you can go back to the Dallas Cowboys years ago. Roger Staubach was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Then a young quarterback, Clint Longley. This was back in the mid-'70s.
Yep.
That Roger got hurt on a Thanksgiving Day game against the Washington Redskins. Clint comes in off the bench, throws a couple of touchdowns. That following year, Charlton, they're in training camp. They get into a fist fight.
Yep.
Clint Longley gets traded.
Yeah.
They get into a fist fight. This is teammates, quarterback.
Yeah.
You use your hands to throw the football.
Yep.
But, when we look at this scenario with Draymond Green, they get into this verbal altercation, which is not a verbal altercation. It's a verbal spat.
Yes, it's a spat.
Players do it all the time, in and out of contests, being competitive.
Yeah.
Whether you're a teammate or whether you're a foe, it happens all the time.
Yep.
And, I don't know which epithet was used or whether the epithet used at all, but everybody has their own version of what was said to the other.
Yeah.
Now, look, Draymond Green got suspended a game, okay? Draymond Green has been suspended before. The NBA suspended Draymond Green 3 years ago.
Sure did.
Okay?
Yeah.
In the NBA Finals that cost the Warriors the series, okay?
Sure
that
did.
was an intentional thing.
Yep.
So Draymond Green understands the complexity of being suspended and what it does to the team.
Yeah.
He understands coming back is that he has to play his role with the team, and that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's not going to be affected by this. Durant is not going to be affected by this. Matter of fact, they won the next game after he was suspended, didn't he, the other night?
Yeah, they sure did.
So if you think that this demises or undermines the Golden State Warriors, Charlton, this is too strong of an organization and guys with too much in common.
Yeah.
The common is being teammates and winning championships.
Yeah.
That's what they have in common. The media has to find negativity in a story about Golden State. Otherwise, everything they say is feel good.
Yeah.
All they do is win, win, win. Whoever made that song.
DJ Khaled, Big C.
That's all they do.
Are you auditioning? Are you auditioning for DJ Khaled's next album, Big C? You said all you do is win, win, win. Is that what you said, Big C?
Well, if they need somebody in the video with their shirt off, Charlton, I can do that.
You can do that, Big C.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So when you look at the media writing this story,
yeah.
There's nothing been said about Golden State's victory after the suspension,
No,
They're still talking about the incident that occurred courtside.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. There's still over 60 games left to play by Golden State this season. About 68 games left to play.
Yep. And
that's what they're concentrating on, Jonathan. They're not worried about what happened 2-3 nights ago.
Nah, and they're going to do fine. In fact, they're playing the Rockets right now down in Houston. The Rockets have been struggling just a little bit. Golden State, obviously, they really never struggle. They haven't really struggled even when they had Mark Jackson here. They just continue to keep winning, Big C, and they're playing a game down in Houston tonight, and a lot of people are surprised that Houston's having some struggles. I mean, coming into the season, everybody thought maybe they would challenge Golden State, maybe they will, but they're an under 500 team. That's not. I mean, things happen. They're even talking about getting rid of Carmelo Anthony, and I want to get your thoughts. He's an Olympic champion in Carmelo Anthony, and this is what we tell young players who are in college and thinking that they're going to be the next great player. There's a guy at Duke that everybody's hyping right now. They say nothing about how intelligent he is. It's all about, oh, he looks like Shaq. He's a big physical beast. And, I mean, they talk about him as if he's a zoo animal, Big C, not a human being. And I hope he pays attention to that because Carmelo Anthony has been one of the most highly decorated players in the NBA. Now they're trying to say, well, maybe he should be on the sideline, out of the game, maybe coaching, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they parted ways with Carmelo today, Charlton. They made a decision that he'll no longer be with the organization.
Yep.
But when you think about that, though, Charlton, he spent 15 years at the highest level in the NBA. NBA.
Yeah.
He's won an NCAA title, Charlton. He's won Olympic titles. He's won world titles. He hasn't won an NBA championship. But 15 years in any profession in athletics is a long, long time.
Yeah.
And the game is caught up with Carmelo physically.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, I mean, even when you look at LeBron, where LeBron is at the level that he's performing, LeBron takes time off. He's playing less minutes this year than he's played at any time in his career, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about Carmelo and the systems don't fit for him any longer to be the marquee guy.
Yeah.
Most players can't go back and take a secondary role. You know, for Carmelo to sit around and average 10 to 12 points a game, he's not accustomed to that.
Yeah.
So, you know, to get him, he's a rhythm shooter. That means he has to shoot often.
Yep.
You can't expect him to come in and take 10 to 12 shots a game. He wants to do that, you know, every quarter.
All the time.
All the time.
Let me get your thoughts on
it. That's the thing with Carmelo.
Yep.
I mean, he's had a long, lustrous career.
Yeah.
Whether he decides to go to another team or whether he just wants to decide to say, hey, I'm giving it up. He's not the first player in the NBA, Charlton, to have his career come to an end without winning a championship.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley never won a championship, Charlton,
yeah.
in the NBA. Many other greats have retired from this game of basketball, professional basketball, without ever winning an NBA title, Charlton.
Yeah.
He would just be the latest.
Just another one, too. I want to ask you, Vince Carter, does he remind you, or Carmelo? Again, these guys were stars. These guys were household names. I remember in the 2000 All-Star game over here in Oakland, it was Vince Carter who had a dunk in the dunk contest, and he was hanging on the rim by his inside elbow. That's how talented he was. And then playing with Sacramento last year, he's down in Atlanta now. But your thoughts on Carmelo is just like Carter. At one time, they were the LeBron James of the league. They were the Steph Curry, the Kevin Durant. And they're rich men. They're not hurting for money. But ego sometimes is hard to heal. And when you're told you're not wanted anymore, I just want these young players, especially the kid at Duke, and his name escapes me right now, but he's a big kid.
Zion Williams.
He's a dominant kid. But even for his parents, ask yourself, when's the last time they talked about anything other than how big and strong and powerful he is? Talk about the man's, his athletic prowess, yes, but his academic prowess also. What does he want to be in the future outside of being just an athlete? I want them to start turning that angle when they talk about black talent. Talk about what they're doing outside of the game. I'm sure he's a well-rounded individual to even get into Duke Big C, but you wouldn't even know that when he comes on TV. And I gotta say this to a lot of young black athletes, and mainstream too, but if you're a young black boy, you know what I'm gonna say is true. Oftentimes these institutions will tell you they love you, they appreciate you, I'm gonna treat you like you're my son, you're amazing, you're gonna have a bright future. Boy, get in there and shoot 1,000 jump shots every day. Boy, get in there and do some push-ups, boy. Makes you get bigger, stronger, and faster, boy. I hate that we're 2018 and they still ogle over a young person about his athletic prowess and not his intelligence. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he is a freak of nature, and that's what he was recruited on, being an athlete. He wasn't recruited on being an academic. Everybody around the country said, you can come play with us, and we will give you whatever you want. I mean, he's a unique physical specimen. That's what athletics is, though, Charlton, built around unique physical specimens. We haven't seen anybody that got an athletic scholarship, regardless of the sport, say, hey, we got you here for your academics. I mean, that's just being honest across the board. There's not a broadcast around that's sitting up talking about the star players on the program GPA. They'll always bring up one player who is the academic on that team, showing him with a 3.46 GPA, but he has no playing time. You know, he's on the honor roll. But he doesn't get any playing time, Charlton, so it makes it easier for him. Everybody is realistic about what Zion Williams' future is, Charlton, at Duke. He and two other freshmen. They'll be three of the first five guys drafted in the NBA. But when you look at this kid, everybody's trying to compare him to somebody else physically. The person that I match him up with is Larry Johnson, former UNLV forward, Charlton, and played #1 draft pick of the New York Knicks. I mean, physically, you know, he's a couple inches taller, but build-wise, he's the same, Charlton. He knows that his future, and the world knows that his future is in the NBA. That's where he's going to make his living. He'll make enough money in a few years, Charlton, in the NBA to set him up for life if it's handled right. Hopefully he'll take some finance classes at Duke. that will show him how to structure his money.
Yep, hopefully.
But, in any sports broadcast, Charlton, the only thing they want to talk about financially is how much the coach is making.
Yeah.
How much the team is going to get in the bowl game. Not what the kids are getting that are playing the games that allow all that to occur.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I hope you keep your head on your shoulder, young man. You're a lot more than just someone to run up and down and ogle over on the court. The Rockets at the Hawks tonight. And the Warriors at the Rockets. The Hawks are at the Nuggets. Denver, surprisingly, one of the top teams this year. I know that sometimes you think it's going to be Golden State. It's going to be maybe Houston or Utah. Or sometimes the Lakers or Clippers based on LeBron James being there. But I look at what Denver's doing right now in the Western Conference, and they're right there neck and neck with Portland. We know Portland's been solid over the years, especially with Damian Lillard. But Denver's playing good basketball. I don't think the Hawks have a chance. Just give me your thoughts on Denver may fade. They tend to always challenge for the 8th seed in the playoffs if they even get in, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they've been one of the surprise teams in the West this year. Charlton, actually, they've been in second place most of the season behind the Warriors.
Yeah.
You know, they've been shooting at a great pace offensively. It's early in the season, and you wonder how long can they keep that torrid pace up of being one of the top teams. The Hawks, Charlton, are a developing team. They got 3 rookies, 3 first-round draft picks on the team.
Yeah.
But when you do that in the NBA, then you already put the season to rest.
Yeah.
You don't expect to be competitive. You know, we always talk about college football and how great Alabama is and could they beat the worst team in the NFL. No, they can't, because they got to go out there against grown men. And it's the same thing in the NBA, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you bring these number 1 draft picks in, and all of them are early exits out of college. None of them have played 4 years of college basketball. They're all 1 and done, 2 and done players.
Yeah.
They come into the NBA, Charlton. They're playing grown man games every night, and that travel regimen, that lifestyle regimen, is much different than what it is in college.
Yep.
But the greatest thing about a professional athlete who has some time, on his resume,
yeah,
that he's been around for a while, he doesn't want to be showed up by some young punk that just showed up. Okay?
Doesn't want that to happen at all. But speaking of being shown up, I want to swing out to Southern California. The Clippers are right there neck and neck with the Lakers. They used to be the team in town once Kobe Bryant retired. And then with Doc Rivers doing his magic there, Chris Paul left, and now that changed a lot of things. But the Spurs are in L.A. tonight, and it used to be the thing when the Spurs were in town because they were playing the Lakers, whether they're playing Shaq and Kobe's Lakers, or even right now if they get up against LeBron. But they're playing the Clippers, who are playing pretty decent basketball. The Spurs, they're not the same team as they were before. I mean, the last 20 years they've been in the playoffs. This might be a year they miss it. I doubt it, but this might be the worst team that Pop's had in about 20 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at where the Clippers are, Charlton, Doc Rivers is still there.
Yeah.
He got rid of all the problems that he had. He got rid of Griffin. He got rid of Paul. He got rid of Jordan. He got some players, Charlton, that's buying into what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of the pack in the Western Division, Charlton. They're playing much better than what everybody thought they would. They have the best record in Los Angeles of the basketball teams. When I look at San Antonio, DeMar DeRozan has come in from Toronto, Charlton, and he's going to do a marvelous job with that organization. Pop knows how to win.
Yeah.
Bottom line, he can will his team to win, Charlton. He has the intangibles that not many coaches have. He takes what he has as an organization. When you hear about San Antonio, you never hear about the problems that you have with other teams, Charlton.
No.
You don't. You don't hear about inner fights. You don't hear about somebody saying, I have to be the star.
Right.
They play basketball by committee. When you look at the run of championships that Pop has had and over the last 20 years making the NBA playoffs, Charlton,
that's amazing.
That's because the team has been run by committee.
Yeah.
Next man up. When you look at DeRozan, Charlton, he's one of the top 10 scorers in the NBA.
Yeah.
He's averaging over 25 points a game. You have the pieces in place. Aldridge is there. Good big guy in the middle.
Yeah.
They have the guys, Charlton, that will make them competitive. They will never finish lower than 6th seed in the West, Charlton.
Yeah. I'm really impressed by what Pop has done. When you can say their worst team is still over 500 at this juncture of the season, it's impressive. The Jazz lost by 50 points to the Magic last night, and this is a team in Utah that was in the playoffs last year. They have a great environment when they're up in Utah, but how do they lose to the Magic by 50 points? You would think that maybe some guys forgot. Did some guys sleep in, Big C? Did they miss curfew, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they might have spent too much time at the Magic Kingdom, Charlie.
Yeah.
Magic City or something.
Yep.
But you think about that being stumped by 50 points in the NBA.
Yeah.
We're talking about having some professional pride, Charlton.
Yeah.
But you can't tell the Magic for rubbing it up on them, Charlton, because you're out there to play defense.
Yeah.
And to score.
Yeah.
The Magic did that. They fulfilled their contractual obligation last night, Charlton, as players.
Yeah.
When you look at Utah, you have to wonder, what do you do to stem the tide? When you have a team that's hot,
yeah,
and they're up on you by 30 points, 40
that's
points,
incredible.
and eventually 50 points, Charlton.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to care about how you look as a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And do something to slow that down.
No, I think it's almost hard to lose by that many points, but the fact that they pulled it off, you got to give credit to the Magic, Big C. What happens down at, they say what happens at Disneyland stays at Disneyland, or the Walt. Which one of those Disney centers, Big C? Be careful with some of that food they feed you down there. I want to go up north across the border, Big C. Dwayne Casey was fired by the Toronto Raptors for having the best regular season franchise record in that organization's history, 59 games in the regular season, but that wasn't good enough, and the ownership let him go. And I remember he had a great statement that he made on a couple of shows that he went on after he was let go. And a lot of people were saying, well, are you disgruntled? And how do you feel about your organization for letting you go after you led them to more wins than they'd ever had? And I'll never forget what Casey said, that a lot of men can look to as a benchmark and a roadmap to how to handle it when you get let go. He said, I'll have another job. I thank them for what they did for me. I thank the organization for giving me the opportunity. He wasn't disgruntled. He wasn't saying, well, I hate what they did. I wish them ill will. No, he said, I'll be back, basically. Well, he came back last night with the Detroit Pistons in Toronto last night with a 106-104 win, led by Blake Griffin, who dropped 30 points on the Raptors. And they're also led by, Kawhi Leonard for Toronto, had 26. Give me your thoughts on Casey, though. This is a guy that was let go for taking them higher than they've ever been, and then he goes back in town and wins. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to really appreciate the statement that Casey made when he was let go, because he did get an opportunity. And you think about how difficult it is for African-American coaches on any level to get an opportunity. And not only to have an opportunity, Charlton, but to succeed.
Yeah.
We've seen that too frequently as of late over the past decade when an African-American coach has a winning record. Then he gets fired. In the NBA, the NFL, Mark Jackson had a winning record with the Warriors.
Yeah.
He got fired.
Tyrone Lue.
Jim Caldwell had a winning record, at Detroit last year.
Yeah.
Got fired. Tyrone Willingham at Notre Dame.
Tyrone Lue at Cleveland,
Charlie Willingham.
Yeah.
And Charlie Weiss never had a better record than
Dame
Willingham did at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So we see that often. But, the greatest part about it, Charlton, is to come back into the organization that let you go.
Exactly.
With your new team.
Yeah.
And go out there and be professional. And shows that he can still win in Toronto.
Yeah.
That's what he did last night, Charlton. He came into Toronto with the Detroit Pistons, being the head coach of them now.
Yeah.
But shows that's still his house, that he knows how to win there.
Yeah.
And so that's the greatest thing that you can do as a coach, is that you don't have to berate an organization that let you go.
No.
But when you come back and visit that organization, you show them why they had you there as a coach.
Yeah.
And that's what he did last night, Charlton. When he showed back in Toronto, he showed the organization why he had been the head coach there for several years.
Yeah.
Because in Air Canada Center, he was a winner, Charlton.
I tell you what, I was really impressed by his mentality and the fact that he takes the team up there and wins, where he gave them more wins than anybody, and to win again up there, I thought that's incredible. I want to swing out to the West Coast, Big C. The Lakers beat the Trailblazers last night, 126-117. LeBron James led the way. He dropped 44 points. I thought Kobe Bryant was playing last night. It was LeBron scored 44 in L.A., moving into fifth all-time on the NBA scoring, passing, Wilt Chamberlain, which that is, if people could have seen Wilt play, if Wilt scored 44, he'd say, man, I'm off by 6 points. I'm off my game by 6 points. Talk about that, and Lillard had 31 for Portland. But what does that mean, LeBron, if people can watch this guy play? As great as he is, he still scored 6 less than what Wilt averages. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Lakers are now on a 4-game winning streak, Charlton, and seem to have found a rhythm with the players that they have in the lineup and the rotation that they have. The accomplishment of LeBron James last night, supplanting Wilt Chamberlain for 5th place all time on the NBA scoring list is a mighty feat.
Yep.
But it's also not that great a feat. People will say, records fall, but you got to look at how Wilt did it. Wilt did it in less games than what LeBron is, Charlton.
Yeah.
You got to understand, he had back-to-back seasons in the NBA where he averaged 54 and 52 points a game.
Wow.
He and LeBron are matched in many kind of ways. When you think about, these are probably the two most dominant physical players of the era. When Wilt came into the NBA, and I was fortunate enough to see him before he got old and even after he got old, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was such a dominant physical specimen, but he was so graceful.
Yeah.
To have the power and the ability that he had, he was a very graceful finesse player. He happened to run into Bill Russell all the time.
Yep.
People thought that, Wilt Chamberlain would win at least 10 titles, but it was Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics winning those 10 titles because they allowed Wilt to get his points and shut down the rest of the team.
Yep.
And that was their defensive mantra. And so you've seen that same thing with LeBron in his quest for titles.
Yeah.
The last 4 years, it's been the Golden State Warriors blocking that quest for championships.
Yeah.
And prior to that, Charlton, there was a bevy of NBA teams that he was always running up against. You think about it, 8 consecutive runs to the championship round, Charlton, just like Wilt. Wilt had a run similar to that also. Wilt ended his career with only 2 titles, and then you say only 2.
Yeah.
Think about the number of players that would have loved to have one. Look at the Hall of Fame. Half of the NBA Hall of Fame doesn't have championship rings, Charlton.
Yep.
But the ones who do are so grateful. Wilt had 2. LeBron has gotten 3. We don't know if he'll get more than that, Charlton. But very storied careers with both of these players and a lot of physical similarities between the two. LeBron being the most dominant physical specimen in his era in the NBA, and Wilt being the most dominant physical specimen in his era in the NBA, Charles.
Yeah, definitely dominant players. I do want to say sports is $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this $1 billion industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. And again, I want to just say, for Big C Sports, I know a lot of people going through it in California. I want to say a prayer for the firefighters and the victims and their families and all their loved ones and everybody that's affected by this act of nature or whatever it is. It seems like we're having it too many times. But when the fire happens, somebody's got to put it out. And there's no rain forecast until right around Thanksgiving holiday. So hopefully that's going to help some. But there's a lot of firefighters, Big C. They're out there putting their lives on the line to go save people and to go rescue property and even animals, etc. So again, our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we mean it more than just words. I really hope that people can take the time, just give a special moment of thanks when you see a firefighter out there. They really do it all just for the love of what they do, Big C. The biggest game in college football this weekend is no one even knows about it. University of Alabama, Birmingham versus Texas A&M. UAB, they had their program shut down in 2014. Now they're 9-1. They're Western Conference champions. In Conference USA, nobody knows about them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, you talk about a feel-good story in college football. Everybody recalls a couple decades ago when SMU got the death penalty.
Yeah.
For improprieties. UAB was shut down for financial difficulties within the university. The athletic department was no longer funding the football program.
Yep.
So they missed an entire year, Charlton. They lost most of the players that were there on scholarship.
Yeah.
But the coach stayed around. He kept his academic job.
Yeah.
But, they went out, he did fundraisers, he got boosters to donate money, Charlton, and they refunded the program.
Yeah.
And when you think about 2014, Charlton, to 2018, this team in 3 years have accomplished this feat, Charlton, to go 9-1.
Yeah.
And to be under the radar, they finally made the top 25 in the coaches poll, Charlton, for their feats this season. But no one can really sit back and not appreciate what this coaching staff and players have done, Charlton, from a program that was in the weeds, in the dust. It was gone. It was in the grave.
Yeah.
and they've come back, Charlton. And you think about that, you contrast it. They're being paid $1.6 million to play Texas A&M this weekend.
Wow.
Jimbo Fisher got $75 million from Texas A&M on a 10-year contract to coach. University of Alabama Birmingham didn't even have the funds 4 years ago, Charlton, to support a football team.
Wow.
So this $1.6 million will go a long way in the athletic department at that university.
Yeah.
But think about the high volume it would speak. If they knock off Texas A&M and College Station, Charlton,
Yep.
and take their victories to 10 this year, Charlton, what would that say about the landscape of college football and even the amount of money that you pay these coaches, this exorbitant amount, is that you get some players that want to play. You get a coach that cares, Charlton. You can overcome any obstacle.
You can overcome obstacles. And speaking of them rising into the top 25, Big C, will look at a couple of teams that fell out of the top 25 college rankings that were just there last week. Michigan State, they fell out. North Carolina State fell out. Fresno State fell out. And the University of Auburn fell out. Auburn was considered a team that would challenge for the SEC championship and potentially the national championship playoff bracket. Now you have 4 solid programs that were knocked off. How things changed in a week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, how things change in a year. People talked about Michigan State being able to compete, for the Big Ten title. They hadn't lost to Michigan in the last 3 years. They had knocked off Harbaugh and company.
Yeah.
And they opened up the season struggling against Utah State.
Yeah.
And their season has never gotten right from that point. North Carolina has been a struggle. North Carolina State, this is a team, Charlton, that was in the top 15.
Yeah.
4 weeks ago before playing Clemson.
Yeah.
And they were undefeated.
Yep.
And now they're completely out of the top 25, Charlton. Fresno State was the only team in California that was in the top 25. They're no longer there, so California is void of any team in the top 25, Charlton, for the first time in years.
Yep.
But when you talk about Auburn, this was a team that knocked off Georgia and Alabama last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
And here it is now. They're not even ranked in their own conference.
Yeah, that's the truth. Things change. They are young men, but sometimes, you guys gotta realize that every game is a big game, no matter who you're playing. This weekend, top college football games, Big C's top college football games. I know you got that tailgate barbecue getting ready for tomorrow, Big C. But I want to get a couple of thoughts. We have Syracuse. They're playing Notre Dame. That game's at Yankee Stadium, and there's something about Notre Dame. They seem to always look for the chance to get knocked off. They're playing a team that's ranked again, coming down the stretch, and then they'll go and play their rival coming up also, the USC Trojans, and that's going to be at the Coliseum. Notre Dame's, they're a good team, but they're playing Syracuse, number 12 in the country, and Alabama's playing the Citadel. But give me your thoughts on Syracuse and Notre Dame. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is another one of those programs, Charlton. Dino Favors, a tremendous young African-American coach up at Syracuse, who has been under the radar. And he's had a couple losses this year, Charlton. But you got to look at who he lost to, and the biggest loss they had was to Clemson.
Yeah.
They had Clemson down, Charlton, until less than a minute to go in the game.
Southern Justice.
Clemson came back and miraculously won that game.
Yeah.
But this is a program that's been turned around up there in the Northeast.
Yeah.
They have a great young quarterback in Dungy, Charlton, who is one of the best pass combination quarterbacks in the country. He gets no notoriety because Syracuse is not on national TV that much.
Yeah.
But he has a team that can compete. They're going to play Notre Dame. This is a home game for both teams because Syracuse is in the state of New York, and wherever Notre Dame goes is a home game.
It's a home game for Notre Dame.
Ian Book is supposed to be back at quarterback this week for Notre Dame. Will he be sharp after being out for a week, Charlton? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
What will he do against adversity, having that rib injury, coming back? We know it's going to be cold up there in the Northeast. They even had some snow in New York today.
Yeah.
So how will Notre Dame perform in that cold, and how will those ribs hold up in that freezing weather for Ian Book?
Oh, when you said ribs, my mind went to barbecue ribs. Because every time you say ribs, I think, man, can you fly a plate out to California? But you're talking about the ribs on his body. I want to get to number 9, West Virginia. They're on the road this week. That game that they're going to play against one of Oklahoma's top. I guess the state of Oklahoma has 2 dominant programs with Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. But you look at West Virginia, they're on the road this week. If there's a game that they could drop, it would be this one. But I doubt it. But they're in a game where both teams can throw the football. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at what Oklahoma State did last week. Their quarterback threw for over 500 yards against Oklahoma, but West Virginia has a better defense. But the thing I look at with Oklahoma State, Charlton, when they beat Texas, they had a huge letdown the following week after scoring all those points on Texas.
Yeah.
Will they have any momentum left after that disappointing loss where they went for 2 points against Oklahoma, Charlton, when they could have tied the game and took it into overtime?
Yeah.
But as the coach said, that's his decision.
Yep.
Coach Gundy said that's his decision, not the players.
Yep.
They go out to play. I make the decision. Will Greer has been hot, Charlton. He's been hotter than fish grease. He is throwing the ball all over the field. He has an excellent core of receivers there at West Virginia. He's in that Heisman hunt, Charlton. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country. I don't see a letdown from West Virginia because they're looking to get to that big game against Oklahoma for the conference championship, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're not overlooking Oklahoma State. But Dana Holgorsen, that's where he started at. He was Gundy's offensive coordinator. And sometimes the pupil wants to show off the teacher.
That's oftentimes the case, Big C. Number 16, Iowa. At number 15, Texas. Now, at least Iowa State at Texas. And with Iowa State, they're a team that knocks people off. I mean, every year they get somebody. They got Oklahoma last year. We know they're a team that can do it. Texas, they're not competing for anything right now other than some Texas pride. But this is a game at Austin. They'll have 102,000 there. But Texas has so many great athletes. They're like University of Southern California. For them not to have 10 wins every year, it's analogous to say if Alabama didn't have 10 wins every year. They have the same kind of talent pool, same kind of reputation, at least historically, but maybe it's just coaching. Your thoughts on if Texas loses this game at home, they were already had by West Virginia in the final seconds. Your thoughts on this game, Big C?
Well, if they lose this game against Iowa State, who has been known to knock off ranked teams, Charlton, over the last 3 years, ranked teams have not fared well against Iowa State. That's where West Virginia got their loss at, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when you look at Texas, they came off a hard-fought win last week against Texas Tech. Tom Herman, no one will say he's on the hot seat, Charlton. But, last year the excuse was that he has to get his players in.
His own players.
And I think it was just 3 weeks ago, everyone was saying Texas is back.
Yeah.
After they beat Oklahoma, actually 4 weeks ago, Texas was back.
Yeah.
That was a story across the country. Now they've lost 2 of their last 4 games, Charlton. If they lose this game against Iowa, what will be the story in Texas for Herman now, Charlton?
Yep.
Is Texas back, or does he still have to get his players in?
Yeah, they'll find something. That Southern justice always helped them. And even going back to the West Virginia game, there were some players that were ejected out of the game for giving a gesture in the end zone, and it wasn't the middle finger. It was a horns down because Texas is big on the horn signal, Big C, and that's just tradition down in Texas. It's not offensive to anybody, but when West Virginia scored, they had an offensive lineman who's one of their best linemen. He put the same gesture up, but he put the horns down. And them good old boys in Texas, they threw him out of the game, said it was personal foul. So sometimes you expect to see at least one of those calls in Texas, Big C, this week. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Iowa will get after him.
Yeah.
And I mean, excellent. Texas has an excellent wide receiving core. Ellinger has to play his best game of the season, Charlton.
Yeah.
I think they're a little on to him about he wants to run the ball, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you'll see him stacking the line of scrimmage and make him throw the ball more often this week.
Yeah, make him do it. Big C, one of the biggest games is a team that hasn't lost in 2 years. Number 11, Central Florida. And they're hanging outside of the top 10 because the NCAA does not want them in. They have number 24, Cincinnati, at Central Florida. Now, Cincinnati won at the Rose Bowl against UCLA earlier in the year, but a lot of people beat UCLA this year in the Chip Kelly. This game for Central Florida, if there's a game that can propel them into, say, the top 7, they would have to win by maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns. I don't know if that's possible against Cincinnati, but they may have the talent to win unless there's some shenanigans trying to keep them out of the top 7, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Luke Finkel has done a wonderful job at the University of Cincinnati. Finkel was the head coach at Ohio State prior to Urban Meyer showing up, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, he's turned his program around there in Cincinnati. Matter of fact, he had them undefeated up until 2 weeks ago. They're 9-1 going into this game against Florida. Florida needs this game. Central Florida does, Charlton. They're not going to get up past number 8 in this country, regardless of what happens in front of them, Charlton. They'll never get higher than that. Because the committee is going to say, we have the Power 5 conferences.
Yeah.
unless we have Armageddon, nobody outside the Power Five is going to make this bowl playoff scenario, Charlton. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
They would put a 2-loss team in before they put Central Florida in. Because you got to look at the revenue sharing that comes out of this bowl playoff series, Charlton. It goes to those conferences.
Yeah.
That's how they stay strong. That's how Texas A&M is able to play Alabama and Birmingham $1.6 million this weekend and come play.
Yeah.
Because money that they get from these bowls and everything else, Charlton, they have the excessive revenue to bring in the lesser programs and beat up on them.
Yeah.
Now, if it got to a point where they were playing these teams during the regular season and these teams would lose, I mean, you look a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, when Boise State was going around the country, Charlton, beating up everybody.
Yep.
They beat up Oklahoma. They beat up Georgia. They beat up a couple of programs.
Beat up Oregon, yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, we got to find something that separates us from these smaller schools, because when they beat Oklahoma, it was in the Fiesta Bowl, I believe it was,
in Arizona. Yep.
And so this is the reason why this separation was created. You can't have these lower-tier programs, as they call them, competing for the national title.
Yeah.
So you found a way to exclude them by making this championship playoff.
Yep, they've done that, and they always they know how to manipulate the system. They always do. Speaking of manipulating the system, I want to jump to the world of the NFL, Big C. If you look at the quarterbacks taken in 2012, the NFL draft, you have Andrew Luck. He was taken first. Number 2 was Robert Griffin. Number 8, we have Ryan Tannehill. Number 22 was Brandon Weeden. Number 57th pick, Brock Osweiler. The 75th pick might be the best of them all in Russell Wilson. The 88th pick was Nick Foles. The 102nd pick was your cousin, Kirk Cousins, Big C. And the 185th pick was Ryan Lindley. Now, with that being said, look at how great Wilson's played, and we'll cover him tonight as we preview the Green Bay game versus Seattle. But just give me your thoughts on those players, and what do you think about them? 2012 was just 6 years ago, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, the cry from your buddies Kuiper and McShay is always, you got to get a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
You got these can't-miss quarterbacks. But as you went down that list, Charlton, and there was two numbers that were similar. I mean, they were inverted. One was 57, one was 75.
Yep.
There's something that both of those numbers have in common, Charlton. They both won Super Bowls.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not a genius, but I put those numbers together. Both of them had a 7 and both had a 5 in them, okay?
Yeah.
But all the players were projected above them and drafted above them, Charlton, have not had the same success in the NFL. They don't wear the hardware.
No.
I know Andrew Luck, they say, you know, he'll still eventually be one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. Still hasn't won. He's coming back from injury. The coach should be getting better.
Yeah.
Robert Griffin may be starting this week for Baltimore, Charlton, because the two quarterbacks in front of him haven't practiced this week.
Yeah.
You know, Brock Osweiler, he has a Super Bowl ring, Charlton. There's 3 of these quarterbacks in this draft that have a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Your cousin is the highest paid of all of them.
In no ring yet.
Minnesota now.
Yeah.
Lindley is out of the league, I believe. I think Arizona let him go.
Yeah.
But when you look at those quarterbacks, Charlton, Tannehill can't get back on the field anymore.
No.
You know, in Miami, 2 of those quarterbacks in Miami. But you look at the success, and everybody says you got to spend a first-round draft pick on a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at that year, Charlton, 6 years ago, and you look at what has occurred in the NFL now, this year, the top 2 quarterbacks in that draft were Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin.
Yeah.
And then look at the 2 top quarterbacks drafted in this last draft, Charlton. Matter of fact, if you look at the top 3, Tannehill was the 3rd.
Yeah.
Look at the top 3 quarterbacks drafted this year. Baker Mayfield, struggling. Sam Darnold, been benched. You know, Allen, been benched also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite similar to what it was 6 years ago.
Yeah, some things don't
When you
change.
look at those quarterbacks that have been drafted, Charlton, there's not much change. So those guys that constantly talk about their experts, and you got to get this franchise quarterback, he's a surefire, can't-miss prospect.
Yep.
And think about those words. Surefire, can't miss.
Yep. That comes on.
How many games have those guys missed? That's the thing you want to look at. How many games did Andrew Luck miss? He missed 2 years.
Yeah.
Robert Griffin was out of the league for 2 years, Charlton.
Yeah.
Tannehill has missed basically 2 years since he's been playing.
Yep.
So they can't miss. They can't play.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to read between the lines, Big C. If the playoffs started today in the AFC, the rankings, and everybody has opinions about who's going to finish up where, but we're at the halfway mark of the NFL. The rankings right now, you're looking in the AFC, Kansas City number 1. Can't wait for the game this week. Number 2 would be Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 3, the New England Patriots. Number 4, the Houston Texans. Number 5, the LA Rams. And number 6, Cincinnati Bengals. Give me your thoughts on which one of those teams have a chance to at least meet in the AFC Championship game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think you meant the Chargers in there when you're talking about LA in the AFC.
I forgot they're in LA. Yeah, you're right.
Kansas City right now, Charlton, until somebody can slow them down. I mean, the teams that I like right now in the AFC Championship, if it was to line up that way, I like the way the Steelers are playing, Charlton, and I like the way the Chiefs are playing. The Steelers are playing outstanding defense.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have gotten better on defense, and they've gotten Hunt back, and they've gotten Barry back on defense. So they got their true 2 leaders back on defense. So that did nothing but help improve that team.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes has shown that he has not slowed down at all, Charlton, that he's been able to adjust to every defense that's been thrown at him. And he has a great offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy, Charlton,
yes,
that knows how to manipulate the defense, and he sees the plays before his quarterback does, Charlton, and they're on the same page all the time.
Yeah, he's amazing. Because I want to get your thoughts again, because every year we look at the New England Patriots, and everybody says it's about coaching, it's about talent. We know New England has talent, but something's off where they don't have their big Gronkowski catching passes with them. But he's not the same Gronkowski. He's a little bit hitching his giddy up, gumming up. And Tom Brady looks pretty sad when you blitz him a lot. But if New England's not home, I don't give them a chance at all, Big C, to win anything. Even if they get into the playoffs, of course they'll win their division. But I see them being a team that's not going to have the chance to even get to the AFC Championship game this year. Do you give them that same chance to not get there, or do you think they'll come on strong, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, until you beat them, you don't count out the Patriots.
Yeah.
They have just as good a chance as anybody. I know they have a history of not making it to the Super Bowl playing on the road, Charlton. But, anytime things can change.
Yeah.
There's been many teams gotten to the Super Bowl by playing a road game, Charlton.
Yeah.
The thing about it is New England is playing outside, and it's cold, even on the road.
Yeah.
I count them as an equal performer, Charlton, to anybody. If it's on grass, it's a different story. But if it's on turf, I give New England the advantage.
Well, they're going to have to either go through, it looks like they may have to go through Kansas City or Pittsburgh to get that done, and only time will tell. If we kick the ball over to the NFC, then you think Los Angeles, maybe 1 or 2 with New Orleans, and then Chicago, based on Minnesota, Chicago, they're going to be a 3 or 4 seed. I still like Carolina. They're quietly winning games. And then if you look at, Washington, Minnesota, however you toss them around, those top 6 teams, everybody's thinking Rams, they're thinking New Orleans. Is there an outside team, maybe Carolina, that could scare and knock off one of those top 2? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody's going to look at the Rams, Charlton, because they've had an outstanding season. I'm not sold on the Rams, Charlton, because when you look at the last couple of games that they have played, Charlton, they've given up a lot of points.
Yeah.
A lot of points. They gave it up to New Orleans. They gave it up to Seattle.
Yeah.
Not only that, Charlton, Green Bay was in the game with the Rams. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like they took care of business against Green Bay. As they said, nobody gave Aaron Rodgers a chance at the end of the game with the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, yep.
But, you like where Los Angeles been offensively. New Orleans is the hottest team in the NFL, Charlton. 8 consecutive wins. Chicago, if they win that game this week, they're going to be a formidable opponent, Charlton, for anybody.
Yeah.
That will announce that the Monsters of the Midway are really back.
Yeah, that's
But I like New Orleans in the NFC, and realistically, I like where Chicago is because Mitch Trubisky is playing better than anybody thought that he would, Charlton, to be a second-year quarterback.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about Deshaun Watson last year in Houston, who was having an excellent sophomore season.
Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky is well ahead of the schedule that was set for home and for him, and Patrick Mahomes, another sophomore quarterback. You think about these 3 young quarterbacks, Charlton, are really setting the league on fire this year.
Yeah, I think about that, and it's always great when football comes down to the playoffs. But there's a game tonight that a lot of people are paying attention to. We have Seattle. They're just a 2.5-point favorite over Green Bay. That game's up in the Great Northwest in Seattle, and we know how tough they were for the Rams to beat. I think the Rams will be better once they get to lead back in the secondary. But you look at Green Bay, they're always coming from behind if they win, or they're trying to come from behind and win. If they lose, they're rarely out in front. This is kind of the scene of the crime. They've gotten knocked off a couple of times up in the Great Northwest, but Seattle's only getting 2.5. The crowd noise is still a factor. There's no Legion and Boom, but they're still very good. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the last couple of games that Green Bay has lost, they've given up a lot of yards on the ground to their opponent. They've had a problem stopping the run game, Charlton. When you look at them going up to Seattle, you come from Green Bay, you used to having dairy products all the time, okay? now you're going up there and you're eating all this fish.
Yeah.
You eat fried fish, you get a little dairy, you eat some sushi. It may not sit well on your stomach. And not only that slime as you go down to the fish market may make your fingers a little slippery, so you might not be able to handle the ball as well.
I
but they've lost their last 3 games in Seattle, so there's a mental aspect that goes along with that. As great as Aaron Rodgers has been throughout his career, Russell Wilson has been better against Green Bay at home than what Aaron Rodgers has been there on the road.
Yep.
Seattle's getting a lot of players back for this game, Charlton. They're getting 2 of the offensive linemen back. They're getting Brown and Fuker. They're getting their running back for this game, Charlton. Seattle has played some tough games. They've had they've had Los Angeles Chargers.
Yep.
They've had the Rams in back-to-back games, Charlton. Now they got Green Bay.
Yeah.
So they've seen the best quarterbacks that the NFL has to offer. You think about it. You got Phillip Rivers one week. You got Jared Goff the following week. Aaron Rodgers is not going to do anything spectacular to these guys, Charlton, that they haven't seen in the past couple of weeks. Seattle knows that they're fighting for their playoff lives, Charlton. The winner of this game stays in the hunt. The loser of this game, Charlton, starts prepping for the draft.
Do you think the coach, Pete Carroll was kind of under the hot seat? I don't know why. He has 2 Super Bowl championships. His teams always compete. But there was talk among many mainstream media that Pete Carroll might be on his way out up in Seattle because they were not expecting them to have a great season. And you hear the same thing about the brass over at Green Bay. Is McCarthy on the hot seat? I mean, he's been given that favoritism because he's had Rodgers there being consistently healthy for the most part and winning even more so than that. I don't think either one of them on the hot seat, or could I be wrong about that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I equate Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers to anybody who coaches LeBron James.
Yeah.
There's always going to be criticism of the coach if that player's not getting the best out of himself.
Yeah.
And certain players, all you are is a figurehead if you're the coach.
Yeah.
You don't have any say so over that player. That player's going to do as he wishes. He's going to, wheel his wheel on the organization.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers has done that. Mike McCarthy, who are you going to find to replace him? Be realistic in the NFL.
Yeah.
Where are you going to find another coach who doesn't have the experience of Mike McCarthy that's going to be better in that organization with the players and working in those conditions?
Yeah.
You look at Pete Carroll. I mean, we talk up and down. I mean, you and I are just like everybody else in the sports broadcast industry, Johnson. We're opinionated.
Yeah.
Everybody's opinionated. But the thing about it, when a coach makes a bad decision, why do you want to fire him right away? I mean, if Hugh Jackson got fired, we knew he was going to get fired because he was black.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Period. And we're going to have 2 more black coaches fired when this NFL season is over. It's going to be a disproportionate number of black coaches fired versus white coaches. But Pete Carroll, where you going to find somebody who has a better personality with players, with the community, than what Pete Carroll does?
Yep.
Coaches are not responsible for players getting old and getting injured. It happens. It's just an attrition thing.
Yeah.
You have to be able to retool, but you got to have salary cap money to retool with. So when you look at the general manager, and he doesn't leave any money on the table when you get somebody hurt, that you can bring somebody in because you don't have the cap space to sign somebody of high caliber, Charlton, so you're left with a second-tier player.
Yeah.
Neither one of these coaches deserve to go, Charlton. They both suffered a lot of injuries through the season. It's just becoming a thing in the NFL now, Charlton. If everybody can win 12 games, then the leagues wouldn't be competitive, Charlton. You wouldn't have your winner and loser situation.
Yeah, I think they're 2 excellent head coaches. And a lot of players love playing for them because of their success. And they're straightforward guys, too, Big C. That's always
think
important.
Think about this, Charlton. Just to cut you off a little bit. Everyone says coaches being on the hot seat.
Yeah.
How many reporters are on the hot seat for giving a false story? And think about your buddies, Kuiper and McShay.
Yeah.
They have been on the hot seat for 20 years, Charles. And
Yeah.
they keep lying to everybody about who's a great player coming out of college.
Yeah, that's called white skin privilege. You can Google that, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this boys' universe?
Well, Charlton, we're going to have the Army-Navy game coming up very soon here in college football. But, you know, there's a disturbing story when it comes to dealing with the military, Charlton. We got 73,000 veterans this month that have situations that have not been remedied by the Veterans Administration, Charlton.
Wow.
That have applications in for money, funds, and health care. There's been over 10,000 veterans, Charlton, that have not been paid.
Wow.
Veterans and active duty soldiers that have not been paid. We just had a president send up to 15,000 troops to the border. Now, it's already cost $250,000, Charlton, with that 6,000 that he sent down there.
Yeah.
Yet we have veterans that are not getting paid. This is where the Army-Navy game, Charlton, is so important. When we talk about solidarity in this country, Charlton,
Yeah.
we look at the guys on a sporting event and say, wow, isn't that great? But what about those days when that glory on the field is gone and those veterans have sacrificed so much, Charlton?
Yeah.
And still, as a country, just like the veterans from World War I, the African Americans, is that we treat them as third-class citizens. We have a president that's bragging about the military, how much he loves them, but he's treating them as third-class citizens.
Well, we know that's a fact. You can Google that, too. Our thoughts and prayers with everybody. And again, for all the people going through it in Northern California and Southern California, you keep hope, listen to all the emergency services, and hopefully if you have some spare food, some canned food, find out how you can donate that food to a lot of families that really need your help. Speaking of helping, we'll do the best we can every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.